All right, I seems to be moving heads. Everybody keeps asking about them, and there's a whole. I bet George has been a big help figuring out mine, but I have not seen kind of some of the little things here and there about using them that I've kind of done a lot of digging, researching, and there seems to be a lot of questions about them, and it seems like moving heads are starting to become big interest lately, especially. So I'm going to go through what I have, where they're at, how I have it wired for power, how I have what I'm using to control it, how I sequence, how I like to sequence. I don't have any of Bet George's sequences. I did watch his virtual Christmas, and I learned a lot of little things about tips and tricks on setting up the models and the visualizer stuff, which some of it I didn't understand, and show you what they look like. So what I have, they're 350 watt moving heads. They're waterproof, they are R17 bulbs, and they are outdoor rated. So they've been sitting up there on some storms and pretty bad wind and dust storms here out in Arizona. Some pretty tough heat. I don't know about the cold because it doesn't really get that cold here. We complain about like 50 degrees. So that's what I have. I was initially looking at Bet George's heads because his show is awesome and that's why everybody wants them. But the cost of those, he has really good heads. So in my mind, $1,000 for his heads. They were on sale at the time. I think they still are on sale. It's a great deal for what he's got. The only problem is those are not outdoor rated, so you'd have to get the enclosures, and it's not the enclosures themselves that are expensive, it's the shipping. So once you start factoring all that in, you start putting yourself way over $1,000. You're looking at $1,400, $1,500. So I went with these. I'll tell you, I paid $800 a piece for them, and I slow boated them. It was like $500 shipping for 4. There's a lot of cheaper options out there, and I was originally looking at those for the types of heads, and I see a lot of people doing that. The problem though is, yeah, you get your cheap head, but now you're spending time making something, and I never really liked the look of that globe, because when the light hits it, you can see where it's hitting on the globe, and the globes end up kind of illuminating. So I like these because it's just a fixture all by itself, just sitting up there, and there's no globes, no other hardware. They're incredibly heavy, which is pro or con. And when I looked into the inflatable enclosures, I've heard that because the way they inflate is the fan, the heat coming off the fan will inflate the globe. But if the head starts moving before it has a chance to inflate, then it will get wrapped up in it and just be a huge mess. I've also heard of the globes either puncturing or deflating, and then getting just completely, I can't even imagine having something getting caught up in these motors. They've got some torque to them. So when you look at the cost of buying, because I've seen them, there's some for like $250, even $300. Once you add in that enclosure, even if you make it yourself, because now that's time and money, you normally don't have both. It ended up being about the same cost, if not a little bit less than what I have. So I will try to see, I know the vendor I got it from, got it from Alibaba. Kevin on the Extreme Sequences group, he was the one who put me in touch with him. He did all the legwork with it. One of the concerns that I had, and which he kind of helped me get through, is dealing with going direct to the manufacturer, because I don't know them. They're not one of the normal vendors that we use. And so he had given me tips on all the warnings. One of them, which is when you pay, make sure it's in the contract that it's door to door, because a lot of them will ship it, but they only ship it to the port, and you don't know that it's not coming from the port coming here until you get a bill from the port saying your item's here, you need to come get it, and then they start charging you every day you don't go pick it up. So he helped me out, figure that out, make sure it's in there, confirm it's door to door, and then have them put it in writing, because you can say, well, when you dispute it with Alibaba, hey, they said it was door to door. Like, well, it's not in your contract. So I believe it's happened to him before. Now you have to pay somebody to either go get it, because a lot of these ports are nowhere near us, and have it shipped here. So I pulled the plug, did it. The vendor's been really great with repairs. One of them showed up dead. They sent out parts, DHL, so it showed up in less than a week. And later on I had another failure, and they covered it. They sent me out a new fan. They asked me if I was willing to go purchase my own silicone, because I can't ship it air because of the chemical in it, whatever the case is. But either way, I don't see too many vendors selling them. local. I do know that there's some talk about it. We'll see what this year brings, but I'll show you what I have and show you how I set it up. So let's go outside, take a look. All right, we'll start out here with the breaker box. So I added in this sub panel because I didn't want to run a whole bunch of extension cords, and just popped into here, threw in 3 more breakers, ran 3 lines of 12 gauge copper line into here. And this has got the way I originally laid it out was, this was A, B, C. A is going to be all my controllers, B is going to be all my differential receivers, and C is for my DMX stuff, which I'm going to need to add another one because having my fobbles, my fog machine, and the movers on one breaker, it's just the initial power up, it blows the breaker. So I'll be changing that, but I love these power cons. I have them everywhere through my show. These are the true top, and I need to get the covers for these when the season ends. But they go in here, twist, and those work. And in here, yeah, I'm not supposed to be opening this, but I'm gonna open it. Please forgive me for my sins that are in here. So I've got 3 contactors, the bottom contactors for the movers, and then this relay setup over here on the right. That's just for the status lights here on the side, and the stop start is only for the controllers. That way if I'm having an issue, I can just power cycle the controllers remotely. And then over here in this corner is my Z-Wave receiver or switch, and that is what turns on the contactors. So the way I have this set up with these relays here, close this, is when the breakers are switched on, then these 3 will be lit. You can't see because it's daylight, but this one's blue because my controllers are all powered up. And the white switch, that's just for these 2, for the controllers. And then once the contactor switches them on, you could hear the loud clank, then these 2 will turn green. So I can look on my camera, if I don't see 2 green lights, then I know the breaker's gone, which is the issue I was having with this. And then that's just a little antenna for the Z-Wave. And I need to clean this up. Don't pay attention to that down there. But let's follow this line out. This is my Moving Heads line. Comes around here and into this junction box, which started out as a temporary because I wanted to get an actual electrical box and put more switches, and it ended up just staying. So I'll wait till next year. I just hate this look of all this mess. So my 3 lines come in on one side, and these have an in and an out. So I'm not going to disconnect and we'll disconnect these tops. But what I like about these connectors is they can be disconnected and reconnected while they're hot, and they make a watertight connection. But there's room for improvement there. And so the 3 come in, then 3 go out, and this goes out toward the other side of the yard. And then I have 3 that split off to go up to the roof. And then this one is for my receiver box that's up here. It's just got 2 in there. And for these, I didn't use the waterproof power con. These are just the standard power con, which I didn't realize these are not theoretically waterproof, but they work. Let me go grab the ladder so we can follow these lines up. All right, making our way up the ladder. So another receiver box there. And these lines come around the back side here. And there they are. So the main power line, and these are, this is 12 gauge SJOW wire. I believe it's generator cable, but it's outdoor, silicone, soft. I really like this wire. Amazon was pretty cheap. So that comes into this one, and the other thing I like about these PowerCon is they can connect into each other. If I can get that one out. There we go. So male and female end, they can act as extension cords, and there's no confusing which one's which. And then this is coming off of the A line, which is just for controllers. And in here I have a Colt. This is the K8, and I'm running the last bank for the DMX heads here. Initially I had them plugged into the wrong port. They were plugged in here, and the movers were working. No idea why that is or why it does that, but they were working just fine. It only became an issue when I went to go connect another receiver port, and it wasn't working, and then I realized I had these in the wrong order. So that goes into this DMX to RJ45 jack, and I need to get a bulkhead for this. This has just been like this the whole season. And of course power con on here too. So that's it. These are the movers. On the back here we have the DMX in, DMX out, power in, power out. And they have a different type of connector for the power. I don't know what it is. I know you can look it up if you search for Moving Heads AC on Amazon, but it's just a weird connector. And the DMX, it's a standard XLR, but it's not quite standard. The pins are slightly shifted. I don't know if you can kind of see that, where I've tried to get just a regular XLR cable in there. That's the output. I really need to put something on that, but I haven't. They're not terminated. They should be terminated. Let's go to the output over here. So this is the output, power out, and that's what they look like. And then the inputs just got the 3 pins on it. I'm powering them from left to right when you're staring at the back, and I am doing the DMX signal in the opposite direction, just for ease of not running as many cables. And this is what the DMX cable looks like. And let me see if I can show you that one. So that's all I did, was I took one of the cables they gave me, cut it off, threw a power con on there, and now that works on there. It comes with just regular house 3-prong AC plugs, but I wanted to use power con, so I just made this little adapter, took one of theirs, cut it, and this converts it over to their style. I don't have these mounted in any way up here. They're just kind of sitting up here. I think I've got more than enough space. It hasn't been an issue. And I need to clean these before I power them on. I'll get around to that. Yeah, leaving the lenses dirty like that with just stuff on it and water drops, it will end up eventually burning into it, leaving permanent marks on this glass. So the manufacturer recommends you remove this top piece. The screws go all around the sides, and clean the inner and outer glass. There's a couple layers of glass in there, all the components. And on the side here is the screen. It's kind of a set it once, then you don't have to touch it again. All I did was set it up with their DMX channels, and then I don't have to touch this at all. As soon as it comes on, it does what it needs to do. And there's no branding, no labels, no nothing of any kind on here. Yeah, I mean, they're heavy. They don't, the wind blows, they don't go anywhere. Even on some pretty bad windstorms, these things don't even shift or move. And I've had pretty decent luck with these, just a couple of isolated issues with them. Come around this side. That's a look from up here. One of them showed up DOA, and thankfully the supplier sent me a new power supply. They just asked if I was willing to put it in, which I was. Put in the new power supply. Everything worked out perfect. No issues with these at all. And as soon as I got them up here and set up, I believe it was this one. Yeah, it was this one. Made a loud buzzing, and then there was a loud bang that shook the house. And you shake it around, you could hear stuff kind of moving around in there. It turned out that one of the belts fell off of one of the motors, I wasn't sure which one it was, and it landed into the fan, and the fan just completely exploded. But I sent them a video. They asked me to take it apart, and they sent me out a replacement fan and 2 belts. And it was real easy. Just take off these screws along the back here, and the fan is built into this little back plate here. The power supply was on the opposite side of the LCD. It's right here. It's right here is a long power supply, and all the wiring, all the components, electronics are all in the arms. There is nothing in here, and inside there's all kinds of internal channels. You can tell they engineered this to allow water to escape if it did get inside, which, I mean, taking it apart, looking at the build quality, I don't see how that could happen. But if it did, there's the channels that are designed to allow the water to escape, and all the weight is in here, and these don't lock in position. So if you need to service it, like taking off this back piece, this thing's got a lot of weight on the back end here. When I took it off, the head wants to kind of tilt forward, so it's a little difficult to work on, but I mean, it's nothing major. I don't see myself having to do a whole lot more work with these. But anyway, let's get back inside and figure out how to get these into xLights. All right, now we're back in the house, sitting at my couch side deal, now that we're done voiding my roof's warranty. First thing we're going to need is our instruction manual, which is provided. I've yet to receive anything from, DMX-wise, no matter how cheap, without one of these. And aside from the poor translations, which I'm sure you'll see here in a sec, we have right here, this tells us that our moving head can pan 540 degrees and tilt 210. And there's all kinds of other things like power consumption, if you're into that. No calculators necessary. And it warns about daisy chaining 5. That's the max. You don't want to daisy chain more than 5. I was warned about daisy chaining more than 2 and to test, but after taking it apart and seeing that all the wiring was 14 gauge, which is what they should be, I was really impressed with the build quality inside of that. But the wire was what it says. The management is, or power wire management is pretty good. I wasn't concerned about it, so I've got all 3 hooked up. No issues with that. Not having any problems. Wire's not getting hot, and I haven't thrown a meter on it yet, because sitting stationary, they don't do much, so I'd have to make them move around and lights on, move the shutters up and down. You really got to get them doing a bunch of stuff. I don't do that much anyway, so I'm not really worried about it. And then one of the pages has your gobos, so this is just kind of like a little illustration of what the different gobos look. Doesn't tell you what position's what or what the start is. You kind of have to figure that out on your own. And then this is the color wheel. As you can tell, I don't know what orangered is. There's an orange right there, and there's orangered. So you kind of have to look at these colors and kind of figure out for yourself what color's what, and go from there. I've got a spreadsheet where I've looked at all the colors, saw what they were, and just decided for myself what I thought was. So I don't use this. I actually had to go find this. I'm getting off track here. So the other thing you'll need is on the back, it tells you that if you're running it in DMX 16 mode, this is what all the different channels do and their values. And this last part is the lamp control. So the way that works is I have mine set to where the lamp is just on as soon as I start or turn them on, and I don't have to worry about running this command to turn it on. And to turn the lamp off, you just switch it to anywhere between those 2 values for, I believe it's about 3 to 4 seconds. And once it registers that, it just completely powers off the lamp. And at the bottom is the reset. I've never had to reset. If I ever have any issues, I just disconnect the power and reconnect it, or power cycle it remotely. So you're supposed to power them off, or power the lamp off, and then give the fan a chance to cool off the fixture, the power supply, and the bulb before you completely pull the power. I should be doing that, but I'm not doing that. I haven't had any issues. At the end of the night, there's probably about a good 20 minutes, 30 minutes before the show is automatically kills the breaker.
and I haven't had any issues. I need to do it. I haven't done it. I have no reason why I haven't done it, but I haven't had any issues. You can get replacement bulbs plus. I don't have any, so thankfully I made it through this year without needing to replace anything. But just FYI, you should power them off before turning them off. The way these lights work is as soon as they power on, the lamp is on. So whether you're telling the shutter or the dimmer to be off or not, the lights are still going to be on, and they're still going to be. You're still going to see a light source. You can kind of see a little bit of a white halo around it, and that's how you know they're on. Just clearing out something on xLights, which is not. All right, well, let's jump into xLights and show you how to model this. All right, so we are here, and let me just delete these groups. There we go. All right, so after I'm sure you've got your controllers done. I just have a dummy in there. Come over here to DMX, and you have a couple of options. You have the Moving Head 3D and the Moving Head. I originally started with just the Moving Head because I had a 2D layout. And if you're in 2D and you throw this down, this just tells you the direction and the beam, and you could change that here to 3D. And this is what I initially had to start with, and it makes 3D movements. The only problem was I went to 3D, and yeah, there's my moving head. But when you look around here, it's flat. So that wasn't going to work. I had to completely delete it, start over, and went with 3D. And I mean, if you're not in 3D and you're already adding moving heads, you should probably reevaluate your priorities. But having it in 3D is pretty. Just with the visualizer, that's all it affects. It's so much easier to work with. So we've laid this down a lot bigger than it probably is in real life, but this is just as a reference. And you can move it around with these, and you can't see it, but in the center here, there's a thing you click on, and that changes it around. What you don't want to do is pull these handles to rotate it left and right. The xLights does not like having it done this way, and if you click this, I don't want to show you because I'm sure I'll crash xLights, and move this around, the beam will not move. So the way you adjust the way it is facing, like with mine, these are the wrong direction. Let's just say that over here in this black, that's the back, and this isn't how they start. They start off facing completely back and down at the limit stop. So just looking here, we know for our channels we are 16 because we're using DMX 16. You can also change in the fixture to just do different DMX protocols to make it less. I don't understand why you would, but you can. I don't recommend it. And let me pull up my configurations I've written down. All right, so the pan channel in our manual is 10. So let's change that to 10. The pan orientation, and this is the direction that it is facing when it is not moving. And you see that faces it back, which is good. That's correct. And the pan degrees of rotation, we know from the manual these things can go 540 degrees, so a lot more than all the way around. But here's the thing about this is the visualizer does not match what the heads are actually doing in with direction. So if I tell the moving head to pan left, the visualizer will move right, but the actual moving head will be moving left. So the way you fix that is adding a negative value right here on the pan degrees of rotation. It took me a lot of digging to find that. Nobody's mentioned it, probably because it's only an issue I was having. All right, so the pan slew limit is how many degrees per second this moving head can move. This is not relevant for anything other than the visualizer. So this is essentially making because the moving head can only move so fast. The motors start moving. It's just stepper motors. And this helps you mimic what the moving heads are actually doing. I have not tested it. The way I was told you should test this is to make a sequence and have a 1 second value switch from 0 to 255. And then you have another space for however long and then have it do it again. And you measure how far that head was able to get before it went back to its start point. And then you use a stopwatch. I haven't done it. I've just kind of played with the values while I had them out in front of me until I got something close. So 150 is a good start point if you have something similar like I do. And it's not perfect. My heads are a little bit slower than this, but I don't feel like dialing it in. I don't do a whole lot of complicated moves, so it hasn't been an issue. But you don't want to leave it at 0, because if you leave it at 0 and you tell the moving heads to go to a full value, the moving head will just snap to that position. And then when you have a value change, it will just snap to the next position. And it's kind of hard to gauge sequencing the movers without actually being out there and seeing what they're doing. So that's helped out a lot, getting that close to what it actually is. So my tilt channel is channel 12 according to the manual. And my tilt orientation, this is the start location for the moving heads before I start introducing a value. This is going to be 210. Yeah, 210. So, that is not. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's not 210. My start position is 341. There we go. And that is when I power them up. You'll see here in a bit that the moving heads will turn on and they'll go to this position before you start giving them any kind of commands. And the tilt degrees of rotation, we know from the manual that these things can tilt 210 degrees. And if your movers are going the opposite direction from the visualizer, then you just add in a negative value here to the orientation. Oh, not orientation. That is the degrees. There we go. Yeah, just add in a negative value there, and that will make it go the opposite direction. And that's just for the visualizer. This does not affect the moving head at all. So, and this, again, I haven't measured it. I don't want to measure it. I probably will, but not today. Now, if your moving heads have an LED lamp, which mine don't, mine have an actual halogen bulb, so I cannot adjust the color by introducing RGB. I have that color wheel that you saw on the manual that has to move around to get to whatever value is at whatever color. So if you had this in here with the LEDs, then you can drop color effects on it and it will change the moving head to do that color. I can't do that. So for the visualizer's sake, I just dropped in channel 3, which is my dimmer. That way, no matter what I do, no matter what color I drop on it, it will still show on the visualizer that the beam is on. And my shutter channel, I have that one at 3.2, and that is just the dimmer. And this is also, when you throw the on effect, I'll say, it will affect this channel. So if you want the on effect to affect your strobe channel, or I call it strobe, it's the lamp on, then you can change that to whatever you want. This has worked for me. It's probably wrong, but I have had success with this because color's irrelevant. And the beam length, you can adjust this in and out, and it changes how far out the beam goes. I don't remember what I set mine at, but these things travel out forever. And then the width, you change that. It makes it wider. You can make it more like a flood. All right, so now that we have that in there, we don't want to do shadow models. We're not going to mess with the start channels just yet. You want to go in here and do the strand node names. So moving head, and let's just do these real quick. So this is the channels 1 through 16, and I go in here and call this color. And C2 is they call it dimmer on the manual, but I know that's not what this does. So yeah, I'll leave that at dimmer. I'll just do this as the manual says, and I'll show you what mine looks like. And this is strobe. 4 is gobo, which stands for go between object. That's that little disc that spins around and it's got shapes on it. And then we have our prisms. So that's prism 1. And then the value underneath it is the rotation. So this just rotates the prism. 7 is prism 2. And prism 2 rotate. 9 is the focus. And the focus, if you're going to project a gobo to, let's say, the street or the wall or something, depending on how far that wall is, it's almost like a camera. You have to adjust the focus in and out to clean up the image. And then whatever value, make sure to take a note of that, because if you go to do it, you're going to have to adjust this focus to match that. I've also done some cool effects where you bring the focus completely out, so it's just kind of like blurred and straight up. If it only works really well if you have fog, and then have a value curve to bring the focus in, and it kind of makes the beam narrow in, and then do a move. So you got to play around with that, but you can't really see what this does if you're not projecting on something unless you have haze or fog or something. But these beams on their own, since they're 350 watt, they do really, really well with no fog or anything. 10 is my pan channel. 11 is my pan fine. And all this is if you are going to pan, let's say, a value of 20, and you change the pan value to 100, it's going to break down those 20 steps into kind of like micro steps. It's like micro stepping with these movers. I don't use it. I played around with it to see what it does. It just makes it move real slow. If I wanted it to move slow, then I'll just use a value curve. I don't, but it's here, so I put it down here so I know what that channel is. Let's see, that's our tilt channel is 12, and then that also has a fine tilt. Oops. If I could type. I'm working our way down to 14 is our pan tilt time. I don't know what that is. I haven't played around with it. Somebody did explain it to me, and I completely forgot because it's not important. You probably won't use it because I don't use it either. And frost. Frost pretty much puts like an opaque glass in front of whatever it is you're projecting, whether it be a prism or just a different color. And all that does is it turns the beam into a flood. So whenever, because normally I'm doing all my moving head effects in the sky, but if you point them forward at a crowd or at yourself, you can throw the frost on, and it just turns into just a big, whatever color, floodlight. And you can use it for wall washing, stuff like that. And then I just add the reset in here. All right, so that is done. Okay. And the other thing you want to do here is the submodels. So because I plan on putting the different channels into groups, I'm going to add a color, which you're not going to use a color group, but yeah, I add them all on just this demonstration, and that is going to be the first channel. So we're going to add our dimmer, and that is channel 2. We're going to add our strobe, that is channel 3. And we'll just add some important stuff because I'll show you what we're going to do with the models here for anything else. And then we're going to add our tilt. Our tilt channel is 12. We're going to add our pan. Pan channel is 10. And I think that is it. Yeah, you're not gonna, that color's not important. You don't need that. Don't put that. You won't use it. And that's it. So that's just, the node is just the channel that is going to be on. So, okay, it's done. So now that my moving head is set up, I'm going to take this moving head, since I have 4. I'm going to copy, and so Control C, Control V. Bring out my next moving head. And because I am copying this first moving head, if I click on this one, which I've selected, and I go into my stranded node names, it's going to match. And it's also going to bring over my submodels that I did on that first one. And if it didn't, or if you forgot about it, or you're trying to add them in after the fact, you can just import from model and select the first moving head. So that is that. Let's Control C, Control V, get another one. Move that up. And then we'll do that one more time. And we'll make another one. So there's our 4 moving heads. So we're going to take these 4 moving heads. I'm going to right click and create group from selection. And we'll call this the moving head group, or whatever you want to call it. And create. What's important to do here is make sure that you change this from minimal grid to single line. Because when you apply the effects, it's going to apply it as a single line, as in each moving head is a node on that group. And you'll see that when later we go on here. And let's add another group, and we're going to call this the pan group. We're going to add another one, and we'll call this the tilt group. Oh, there we go. And let's just add another one. And we'll call this the, no, not shutter. We'll use shutter. That works. Shutter group. All right, now that we've got our pan group, we're going to look down here, and if you make sure this is checked for show submodels, we're going to take our pan on the moving heads and move that into the group. So 1, 2, 3, 4. We're missing one. There it is. All right, and then this one the same way. They all have to be single line. So shutter, we'll just use the dimmers. Dimmer. Dimmer. Save that. And we're going to add our tilt. Change that to single line. I don't think I changed this one single line. Yeah, this one's got to be single line. Single line. Let's add in our tilt. 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 And one more. Tilt. And that is how you handle your groups. And for the channels, because these are 16 channels, and under my controller, just change this to DMX. And that is DMX channel 1. And start channel of 1. And this one, it's going to be on 1. I'll change that protocol to DMX. Which I don't understand why this doesn't give me the option. I don't know if that's a bug. It's only giving me DMX Open and Pro. But this one allowed me just DMX. No idea why. Let's try changing that to 0. See if this gives me the option for DMX. No, it doesn't. Yeah, no idea why that is. Yeah, so if we select the protocol first, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the difference is between those two. And why that other one let me do DMX. I'm sure one of you guys can tell me why that is. So, well, let's go back to this one. So, because our first one starts on channel 1 and goes to 16, this one's going to have to start on channel 17. All right, so that's going to go 17 to 32. And then this one's got to start on 33. Oops, channel 1. There we go. This one's got to start on channel 33. And this one's port 1. We're going to start this DMX channel 65. Save. And the other thing, the way I did mine, I just opened up the visualizer down here. And I just dragged my models onto here and then drug the next one, which now this one's at the end. Yeah, 2, 3, 4. And that is that. So let's power, oh, let's switch actually. Restore to permanent. No. I want to save that. All right, this is mine, my layout. I've got my roof. We can open up the visualizer here. And all the way at the bottom on port 1. I originally tried to play with these other ports. I can't get them to work. I believe you have to make a special cable that splits it up to get access to these, but I've had no problem with this. My first mover starts at 38. I don't remember why I did that. I think I had some other DMX fixtures I was planning on putting before the moving heads, and then it just didn't happen. But you can see there are 16 spaces in between each of them on my Culp F8. Actually, it's F8. I think I said K8 earlier. So, going to my layout here. There they are. And that is essentially the position that they start in. So let's power them on and see what they do. All right, well, I need to put that in bridge mode actually. Alexa, start the show.
Let's get this party started.
And now the moving heads should be turning on. It's a little windy out there. But while those start doing their thing, let's go into my roof. And let's put this in bridge mode. All right, we're in bridge mode. Let's go back to xLights. All right, so now they're done doing their power cycle, and they are now ready to start receiving DMX commands. So what these things will do is they will pan until they hit their limit stops, then they'll back off of it, then they'll touch it again, and then they'll move the opposite direction. They'll touch their limit switch, and then once they're done, they come into the upright position, and they sit there until the lamp has come to temperature. So that could be up or down. If it's too cold out, then you will not get any control. They will not be in this position that they are in now until they get to temperature. I've not had any problems with them being too hot to start. I think one summer, I mean, they get pretty hot out there. They're black fixtures, but by the time the show starts, they've had some time to cool down. But I have had it a couple nights where it was too cold, and it says they take about 6 seconds on the manual to be ready to start receiving. I have not, it was maybe like 10, 15 seconds, not very long, but that's what they'll do. And then once they're done, if it's been sitting there for a while, waiting for them to come to temperature, then it will do its homing cycle again. But once it comes to the position that they're in now, this one, then these are ready to start receiving commands. So let's go into the sequencer. And where are all my windows? Let's bring that back to default. All right, so let's come into here. There we go, that's a pretty good view. All right. So that is there. And let's make a animation just for the sake of seeing what these do. So main view, which is where I like to set my master up. And I made an additional view that is just my moving heads. So as you can see, I have my moving heads. I use my pan. I don't really use my shutter too much. And then there's my tilt group. I'd kind of play around with these. Every once in a while, I'll just drop an on effect on there just because I don't want to go in and mess with values. And let me move this down a little bit. So let's drop a DMX effect on the moving head group. Let's see if we can get them to move around. Oh, output to lights. And what's important about dropping an effect on the group level here is this has to be per model per preview. Otherwise, nothing will work. And let's start by, hate that. Let's put it right here. Let's see if that will go here. And we'll move this over here. And we can put this here. There we go. So if you got your movers and you don't have a manual, all you do is drop an effect on it, output to lights, and then you can play around with these values here. And they'll move around. And one is not moving. Wonder what's up with that one. That would be moving head 1. Now I have to troubleshoot why that one's not working. Oh, you know what? I might have messed with the... Let me fix that real quick. There we go. I guess when I was messing around in the visualizer, I bumped it. So you can drop it on the group. Right now, see, I moved it around. It switched back to render style here per preview. You have to change that to per model per preview. And then the heads will do what they're supposed to. And now I got another one not working. What is going on over there? Oh, visualizer. Okay, that's my problem. So this goes to 3853, and this should start at 53. Yeah, let me change that real quick. All right, I got him back. I was helping somebody with their show, messing around with these, and I messed up my order. So there we go. Now they're moving. So you can adjust these sliders to see what happens, and then you can write it down what they did. So same thing with the tilt. If we bring them up, and let's bring them down here, and I'll show you. 80, 75. Let's tilt them down. A little bit more. There we go, that looks good. So you can see in there. So let's switch over to the movers. And so the way these work is the light in there, since it is always on, you have a shutter that needs to be turned on, or the lamp has to be able to put light out, and then the shutter, which is dimmer, is not what directly controls the light itself. So let's come over here. So right here we have, I called it strobe because if you bring it to, let's say just anything above 255 is on. If you bring it to anything less, and then we bring our dimmer up, which you can see on the visualizer, that starts to strobe. And it's not until it's 255 that it's all the way on. So the way it works is it's like a camera, like an aperture, and it's got this little, like the circle thing that closes, and the dimmer is just kind of opening that to allow light to go in, or to allow light to come out. In this case, it's the opposite. So if we bring let's bring the dimmer down. Let's say about 60. It's off. Now we bring it up to, let's bring it up to 7. Now let's say 60. So we're still not getting any light coming out. Let's bring it up to 75. Still can't see anything. All right, now we're at 80. Still no light coming out. There we go. Now we're at 90, and you can barely see, but you can kind of see how the light isn't coming out really uniformly. And as you open it or close it a little more, you can kind of see the aperture closing. So yeah, keep in mind that that beam's not going to be quite exactly a beam as it comes out. And the other thing I forgot to mention, let me go back over here. So come over to Layout tab. Another important setting here that I don't know how I missed over it is the shutter open threshold. So I have mine set to 80 because I know at 80 I'm getting some light coming out. The only thing this affects is the visualizer, and that makes the visualizer match that any value less than 80 you're not going to get any light. It's not until you hit 80 that the light starts to come out. So that'll be the lowest setting on the visualizer. And it also, whenever you throw an effect on, it will start if you hit the what do you call that, the value curve here, it will start it at the minimum being 80. So as you can see in my visualizer here, I have the dimmer up to 59, and there's no light coming out here. It's not until I hit anything over 80 is when the visualizer starts to show some light, and that's what the actual moving heads are kind of doing. It's close. It's enough that you can sit here and play with it while you're doing, seeing what effects you can get. So let's do the color. So like I said, the color wheel, here you have to set your value at whatever the colors are, and the manual kind of gives you a little bit of an idea what the colors are. So let's change that to the orangered so you can see what that looks like. Oh, and actually that's not even in order. Yeah, so these colors, the values for each color It's not even mentioned in here. You got to figure that out on your own. Which, thanks to Kevin, he kind of did that for me. I have a sticky note. And that's not it. Let me find that sticky note. Alright, there's my sticky note with the colors, so I know what colors do what. Let me move this to the other screen while I mess around with this. So this tells me a value between 5 and 9 is red, which we have here. Light blue is between 10 and 14, so I'm just going to throw in a 13. And I believe because I'm bridging, this is a bit delayed. Oh, did I click on it? Yeah, I did. So there we go. So that changed. Let's try orange and green. These have like 2 colors in one. And that is really lagging. So that's that. So the reason why I don't have my moving heads in this group is because if I need to do a change to just one of the heads, then I'll just open up, double clicking that, and it opens these up. And then I can drop an effect on here and add some layers. Insert layer below. So the other thing to keep in mind is that when you're sequencing these, yeah, the visualizer is going to match what the dimmer is doing, but it's not going to match what the strobe is doing. So these look like they're on, but the moving heads are not going to be on because you have to have this lamp control. It's like the master lamp control. And yeah, that camera's moving awfully slow. Yeah, so the visualizer is showing that I'm getting some values here, and that aperture inside is moving in and out, opening, but there's no light coming out because I don't have this one brought up. So yeah, I think that's about it. You're going to see here well, with the moving heads during the day. And when you have these groups here, you can, well, I'll say drop a, so let's say like with a lot of the sequencing I do, I always have this top one here, and I'll stretch it out to the part that I want to sequence. And this is what I like to, like the global settings. So this will be like what I want them all to do. So I'll say I want them all to be this color, which is orange, green, and I want the dimmer to be all the way on, but I'm going to leave the strobe, or bring the strobe up so when they turn on, they'll be solid. And then I'm going to leave the dimmer all the way down, and I want them to be in this pan orientation, and I want the tilt to be where it's at now. And that's how I want them all to start. So once I've done that, you can take, like I have my shutter group, and I can drop the on effect on the shutter group. And yeah, leave that white. And let's see, there we go. And that will turn them on. Now the way you can adjust this intensity is you can put the start and end intensity to adjust it. So it's essentially a value curve. The only thing I don't like about doing this is the value curve is from 0 to 100, and it's not the 0 to 255. So you got to kind of figure out where the lights will actually turn on and off. I don't know if it's going to keep into account that I've already told it only goes to, or it has to be at minimum 80. And you can see right here, these little nodes. That's just because we have it in a single line. You can see what they're doing. Now, if I want to, I'd say single line effect, you could do some cool stuff with that. So if I drop the single line, oh, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to show you how I sequence, like doing, so I've got them on. Actually, let me bring this down. So I've got them on, and I want to adjust the positions like I do with a lot of my sequences. I'll have them start directly vertical, and then I'll have them kind of come down, but they're kind of going to be at, the two outer ones are going to be at an angle. So I'm going to take my DMX effect, I'm going to drop it on the first moving head. Now let's put it on the third one. So bring it to the third one, and I'm going to completely, these need to be zeroed out because we don't want to influence that. So that's zeroed out, and as you can see, it is nothing's happening with it. So it's essentially the way the rendering works is it's going to render this, and then it's going to render this to override this. So we want to change the render style to, let's do subtractive, because I want to subtract a value. And the other thing about, the only way this works is if in your sequence settings you have blending between models. I know with some of the stuff I've done, it has changed the way the sequence looks. Like I have primarily extreme sequences, and every once in a while Ron will do a sequence that needs blending between models off. And in those sequences, I cannot do this method. So you'll either have to, you can't do like a global settings. You'll have to individually sequence all of them and make them whatever you need. You can't just do one and then change it. So like what I'll do here is this one right here. I have it set to subtractive. So it's going to take this value, which the pan is at 75, and subtractive, I'm going to take that pan and let's subtract 10 values from it. And you'll see when this thing catches up. Let's move this over. See, there we go. Now there's a little bit of a lag in this. So you see it's taken away 10, and I can add 20, and it will move in further. So it's going to take away 20 from that initial one here. So because I like to kind of have them staggered out, I'll say like this one's on 3, so we'll take 2, and I'm going to put another DMX effect on 2. And that didn't go. Take this, stretch it out. I didn't want to do that either. All right. So this is the same thing, subtractive, but instead of subtractive, I'm going to add additive. Now, once this catches up, there we go, should be good. So you'll see, since this is an additive, it's going to take this initial value of 75 and it's going to add 20 to that value. And this is how I get them to do that. So I'm not going to adjust any of the other settings. I'm going to take the global settings, and now I can adjust my tilt, and they will all tilt up if this thing will catch up. There we go. And they maintain that position. Yeah, I think I know why that's doing that. Let me bring this down. There we go. I think that might fix our problem. There we go. Now we're getting some response from this. There we go. So, and we're not going to adjust the tilt. that back. And like a lot of my sequences, I'll take, I have a lot of known things that I know. I know that I cannot tilt higher or lower than 80 if I'm going to be in front of the house, or 60, I'm sorry, 60, because that will hit some windows. So if I'm going to do a tilt and do a value curve, let's reverse that. I'm going to start at, I believe it's 145, because it's vertical, and I'm not going to come any lower than 60. And that's going to get it to that slow sweep, which I shouldn't have done on that one. I should have done it over here on my quote-unquote global settings. So, yeah, there it is. That's what I want. And that's how I get them to do that kind of slow sweep. Let's just adjust the pan on that. We don't need that to be. All right. And the other effect that you can use on these is, let's just say, the tilts. No, we're not going to do it on the tilt. We'll do it on the... Yeah, we'll do it here. I'll show you this. So if we, let's get rid of that value curve on the tilt. All right. So now we've got the single line on here on this group. And again, per model, per preview, otherwise it won't. Oh, wait, no, I forget. That's going to be default, actually. There we go. You can see now it's moving across, doing a little sweep. And you can see that here on the nodes on the model preview. It's showing you, since it's treating this like a single line. And if you increase the chase size, that will change how many lights will be on. Now, since this is on the shutter group, it's got some ability to dim. You can change the, on the color, the brightness. And that will influence how bright these lights are. At 20, see if we can see that, so you can't even see it. Past 100. So that's how you do that. Let me open up a sequence so I can show you what I did. See the intro. Discard changes. All right, this is probably my favorite sequence because these moving heads just make it so much more powerful. Let's change it to very quiet. All right, so right here I have, this is my start to get the heads in position where they need to be. And you see I have the sweep coming down. And there's a bit of lag between the camera because I'm just using an IP camera. So if, and that's something I forgot to mention about the sequencing. And this is one of those sequences that Ron has allow model blending off, but I had to turn it on because that's the only way I can do this. So I know the moving heads are going to need to be here for this move. So I put this sequence here to set them up. So I've just got the dimmer on, the pan and the tilt are where they need to be because they match this one. So the pan, I want this one white. I have the light all the way up and I did a value curve to make it dim. And then on the tilt, I have the value curve to make it kind of slowly sweep. And then they go back to their resting position, which is, back. And then I set them up for their next move, which is going to be here. And with this, if I open this up, you can see how I did this. I had the moving heads come to their position early, and then I used the additive to change the position on number 2 and number 3. And over the group, the strobe is all the way up, so I'll get the light, but no light's turning on because I have these here, which is just a VU meter, which is how I got that pulse. I had the UV meter, tied it in with the timing track. And then just because I was playing around, just to try different effects, I added the on effect to give it that last kind of dim. And then the very last move is just the kind of going down. So the dimmer's got the value curve, strobe's up, pan, the tilt's got a value curve, and how I've got them staggered out like that is, like I said, doing the additive and adding some... Which one? No, that one has nothing. I don't know why that's there. So yeah, this one is adding additive 15 to the initial. This one's adding 30 to the initial. And this one's adding 45. And so that's how I'm able to get it set off. So I believe the starting position is going to be kind of a little bit more to the left as you're looking at them. And let me see if I did any other tricks. And I used a lot of on effects here, which I don't think I need to. And additive on this one to add that value to these. Here we go. So this one, because my moving heads, see if you can see on the visualizer, that's what they're supposed to do. But it doesn't quite, with that, I believe it's because I have the frost on too. Yeah, see that frost is on? You can't really see that. Yeah, now you can see it a little better. So that's how I did that. Maybe I'll record those while they're on sometime tonight. Alright, well that's that. Let me turn off this output to lights. Alright, so as far as sequencing, like what I do, I don't like to use a whole lot of the moving heads. I did with the very first 2 songs I sequenced. I sequenced The Greatest Show and Star Wars Funk, which somebody just recently introduced me a new name for that, and now it's stuck. And I've noticed that when I was doing a whole lot of cool effects, whole lot of cool moving head things, and it was really awesome, but I found myself staring at the moving heads the entire time of the show. And when I'm outside and I'm watching the audience and they're watching the show, then the moving heads come on. Everybody turns and looks over at the moving heads. The Megatree could be doing something cool. My XLSs could be doing something cool. Nobody's watching anything. They're all staring at these moving heads. So they're big time show stealers. And so after Halloween, I realized that I need to cut down. So I deleted a lot of effects from all my sequences, and I very sparingly use it, just kind of like as openings and closers, or just cool things here and there. But as far as sequencing them throughout the whole song, it takes just too much away from my entire display, because these things are incredible. And yeah, that's all I've got on that. I know it's a little bit of a long-winded video, but you can kind of jump around. I'll try to put links down in the bottom to where different points are, and hope that helps somebody out. If you have any questions, just let me know, shoot me a message, or just put a comment, and I'll try to get back to it. But I'll leave you guys with that sequence that I recorded. It's probably really blurry. I forgot to adjust the focus, but you can kind of see what the moving heads look like at night. But anyway, catch you later.